Hello, folks. I'm David, and this is From the Hip podcast. And as always, we're sponsored by the Covenant Studios, and we're shooting in the Say What podcast studio. We've got a treat for you today. We've got a gentleman here that he is a firefighter. He saves cats from tall trees, and he's also a photographer. So, Paul, introduce yourself and tell the audience about you.
Hello, David. My name is Paul Jackson, and I am a firefighter, and I have saved a couple cats. They were short trees, though, so it wasn't that big a deal. But I do firefighting for a living and photography for therapy. So
how long have you been a firefighter?
13 years.
13 years.
Yep. And coincidentally, I have been shooting for 13 years as well.
Uh-huh. So what started you on the firefighter path?
I started a little bit late. When you think a lot of the people I work with, a lot of people that start in the fire service, I started when I was 36. I turned 36 in our basic training school. So I was a little bit later in life. However, everything I did prior to that led up to it. So I was kind of a jack of all trades, career-wise, jobs, working, and it all led me to that. And a couple years of thinking about it, and I just went after it and knew it was for me just because of the service part of it.
So how the careers lead to firefighting?
Firefighting is unique because you kind of draw from everything you experience. I mean, you learn on the job, of course. However, prior to that, I was a personal trainer, massage therapist. I had my own handyman business, a lot of years in retail management, all culminated in, and just my heart of service. It just culminated in, let's go after this. And I found myself utilizing a lot of those things that I had learned from the previous gigs that I had.
So you evidently enjoy it, or you wouldn't still be doing it.
Oh, I love it. Like the rest of my time on this planet, I will be, whether I'm in the fire service or not, I will be giving back to other people in some form or fashion. That, in my opinion, that is my responsibility and my duty. So just in general.
Well, tell us how being a firefighter, because, my understanding, a firefighter, you're at the fire station until there's a house building on fire, and then out you go put it out, and then you go home. Besides the service to the individual house, the owner's there, where does the service come in? A general way to describe it. Yes, we do, we fight fires. So if your house is on fire, yes, we come like you described, put the fire out, and then we go back to our fire station, right? In general, that's a good way to kind of think about it. However, I think a lot of people think that same thing, but we're EMS, so we're medical services as well. We run service calls, so a lot of people will have something happen to their home or apartment or whatever that they can't mitigate. For example, someone's renting a home and the water on a holiday is the pipes freeze and they burst, or let's say the water is running and they can't stop it, right? And it's causing flooding. So they might call 911. Many people know how to address this and mitigate it, but there's some people that don't. They might call 911, so we'll come out and we will turn the water off for them.
The joke is the cats, but people call us for all kinds of reasons. EMS, fire related, EMS related, and service related, meaning a motor vehicle accident, Me particularly, one of my specialties is I am airport rescue firefighting certified. So we call it ARF, and my station's on the airport. So one of my responsibilities is that just being ready for any kind of airport emergency, right? So those are several areas that the service part comes into play. And for me, I take it to heart. Like when we're out and I see kids, and for years now, I've always carried in my bag, I have my utility bag, and I carry toys and Hot Wheels and dolls and all kind of stuff in there. So when I see kids, I give them out all throughout the year, not just Christmas. But
Really?
Christmas is my favorite, so I do a Santa bag. But all throughout the year, my utility bag includes toys for kids because they look up to
Firefighters.
So it's really easy to positively impact a child's life. So I always have that. I always have that at the ready for me. So that's part of the service as well.
Well, that's really cool, Paul.
So
I never thought about water line breaks in the house or even in the yard, and people don't know where the main cutoff is or have a wrench to turn it off with,
right.
and they don't know what to do.
Right.
I guess if somebody falls in the home and can't get up,
Yep.
I would think, they would call 911. So do y'all send an ambulance out or the fire truck or both?
Both. And it's per call. It depends on what you're calling for. Clearly if you're calling because an electric line hit the trees in your backyard, we don't need an ambulance. So the fire truck goes and we assess and mitigate that in essence. But if it's somebody falls and
Can't get up.
they can't get up, they may initially call an ambulance and then they may add a fire truck. Or from the it all depends on what we have. Everybody knows dispatch, right?
Right.
Well, we have what we call a call intake. You call 911, and the person that answers the phone collects all of your information and decides where it needs to go, right? So when you call 911, that happens, and then we determine, based on parameters, who gets called out.
Okay. And I assume if they call an ambulance and the fire truck, it may have been somebody that fell that's larger in size. And not only the EMS, there's two guys, and it's a 4-man job.
Right. Correct. And that happens often. We and I don't mean that it happens often that there's a larger person. However, I mean that a job can take more people, more resources. Right. So then, yes, an ambulance or a fire truck or a police officer could be added on, depending on the resources needed.
Well, I know the fire station's right down the street from the building here. And it seems like every time I see a fire truck go by, it's followed by an ambulance. And I wonder why there's always both.
Yeah. So, and in each department, a lot of people think the fire service is like a national department, to where if I go to Mississippi, I'm going to know somebody in the fire service, or we're paid by the same. It's a department of that city government, right? So just like the water department, there's a fire department.
Okay.
Right? You have a HR department, there's a fire department. So it's per that, I would say, town, city, or even county sometimes. And it, depending on how they run, right, you may see, and again, associated, depending on the type of call.
Right.
You may see an ambulance and a fire truck always,
right? But again, it just there's several variables, and some of those being the type of call, how they run that city, how they run their calls, and their setup on their fire department.
Okay, what? Well, tell us more. I mean,
More about
all of it.
well, that it's kind of it's there's a lot to it. So when you say more, you like there's a lot. There's a lot that.
Well, I know you packed your lunch to come do this, so we got lots of time.
Yeah. I'm good on time. But specifically is what I'm saying. Like I can tell you, a day in the life at the station. I can tell you
We'll start there.
types of calls. I can tell you, some of the.
Starting the day in the life at the station.
Well, in my fire station, and I'm, I don't want to say the city I work for because I haven't gotten approval for that. But in my fire station, show up. In most fire stations, it's some form or fashion of this. But you show up, you kind of get ready for the shift that morning. Now we run 24-hour shifts. So we work a day and we're off for 2 days for 48 hours. So we do 3 shifts. And when we show up, we get ready for the shift. At shift change, we collect information from the previous shift. And then we go into checking out all of our equipment, our rigs, our EMS stuff. Every day of the week, we have a different main thing we need to do for the station in general. So one day it might be
Wash the trucks.
well, no. Wash the trucks. If your truck is dirty, that's just a pride thing. Like you need to wash it as needed, right? So, and that's weather based too. If it's raining, we're not gonna wash the truck and then continue to go out in the rain. That anybody's not gonna do that. But like for example, we don't wash our bay floors. Where our apparatus are. We wash those once a week, right? So that may be on a specific day, right? But something that's daily is taking out the trash and the recycling, right? We do that every day, right? So at the beginning of my shift, I check out everything, check out the rigs, make sure all my equipment is good. Then we go into, we have a meeting in the morning after checkout, and then to address any needs for the day. Then from there, we go into whatever we have. We may have something on our schedule, like we may have to go visit a elementary school, or we may have some training lined up. Training can be anytime throughout the day, right? So we incorporate that into our morning meeting. From there, and all the while, we're when we get a call, we get a call and we have to go, right?
Right.
We figure out our meals for the day. At some point earlier, rather than later, we go get our meals, or we go get what we need for our meals from the grocery store, and then we'll come back and we'll, prep and do whatever we need for our meals, right? As the time allots, and then from there it's just training, and all of this happens throughout the whole 24 hours, right? So, I can sit here and I can say it. It'll take me a minute to say it. And it sounds like, well, hey, you got 24 hours left still. Like, well, all of this happens in a span of 24 hours.
Right.
Right. And
Because you never know when a call's going to come in.
Right. And some busy stations are busier than others. Right. We still have to get our physical fitness in. So, we have time allotted to where we work out. But past that, that's a general day in the life. That's a general day in the life. Now, there's some variances. The day could be a holiday, could be a weekend, could be a weekday. There's nothing specific that is going to dictate your flow other than what we already have established, like our daily things that we do every day. We clean the station. Sometimes during the winter, of course, we don't cut the yard.
Right.
But during the summer, we do. And that's once a week, right? So, there's nothing that dictates,
calls.
Well, I assume what time do you show up for work?
7 a.m.
7
Well,
a.m.
I show up to the station me personally at 6. So I show up at 6. I come in. I make my morning morning tea, right? And then because I don't drink coffee, and then I get ready for work. We'll sit down in there. We kind of go over. I go look at some emails. I look at our daily schedule, and that comes from our administration. And then from there, we just go into shift change. From
So
7.
when you change shift, I'm assuming you start at 7.
Mm-hmm.
7:15, you get a call.
Right.
And then you're maybe gone for a while.
Possibly, yes.
If the house catches on fire.
Then if we're going, like, we just have to be ready at any moment. So, but there's no waiting around, right? Does that make sense?
Right.
There's no waiting around for a call to drop, right? We don't.
You're doing things.
Right. A call drops, we go.
And so take us through a typical call.
There's no such thing.
Okay. There's got to be a call you get more than others. Whether it be car wrecks or fires.
Now, of course, I will say this. I'll kind of answer that in reverse.
Okay.
Fires are lower frequency than the majority of our other calls. However, there are times that fires they compete to be the number one type of call. Right?
First cold day and everybody lights the fireplace.
Perfect example. One of the reasons to get all of your things in your house maintenance that are seasonal is that.
Chimney cleaned.
Most recently went on a call that it was not a fire. However, there was a house full of smoke.
Didn't open the flue.
Thick. Exactly. So, like,
I've done that.
That's
I know.
right. So,
Didn't have to
but
call
not
the fire department.
right. Not everybody's going to call the fire department. So it's one of those things. Like it just depends. You may know what to do in a situation, so you don't need to call. Right. However, I can guarantee you, if it's 100 degrees outside, we're not getting calls because somebody smoked out their house because they didn't open the flue. Like,
Unless, I will say my wife was cooking dinner and forgot to take something
so
out of the oven.
that's a different type of call, right? It's
But
different.
you still get them, don't you?
We get them, right?
Yeah.
So again, like I said, there's no typical type of call. So we get a lot of EMS calls, of course, but outside of that, they vary. There's no day. There's no season. Kind of dictates some, but very few. But the rest, there's no typical type of call. There's no day that determines there's no day of the week or time. We can get anything at any time.
Right. Yeah. There's nobody plans what y'all respond to. It's just
Right.
shit happens.
Right. And if I'm being honest, that's one of the things in the fire service that we do is there's a saying, like, we're there on people's worst day.
Yeah.
We show up, you're typically not having a good day.
That's exactly right.
Right? You're typically not. So
Like going to the doctor's office, they always say, "Well, how are you doing today?"
right. It's like, I really
I'm
don't want to
here.
be in the doctor's office, right?
Exactly.
So when people see us, it's I try to that's another part of the service thing too as well. I have to understand that it's not a good day for people.
Right.
And that helps me have I guess you would say, in a in-hospital setting, you would say bedside manner. For us, there's no bed
Right.
sometimes, but not often.
and my demeanor and how I approach people, not as their situation, not as what's happening to them, but as a human being. Like if I have a family member that's going through this, how I would behave with them, that's how I try to behave to other people.
That's never thought about that, but you're right.
And it's a thing that when we're in the business of mitigating emergencies, sometimes we have to be more business-like because we know what we're doing. We're organized.
Yeah, you've done it before.
Right. But sometimes that takes some very matter-of-fact way of being, right?
Yeah.
But we have to balance that with
Compassion.
Compassion. Just we're dealing with other human beings, and the best way to do that is just consider like it was your family member, and that's keep that in mind, and you should be good, in the fire service.
So, have you ever had a day where you were going fire to fire to fire?
Yes. Me personally, I think I had 3 back-to-back or 3 in one shift. In a specific fire, those were working fires. So we call working fires. So if somebody calls because their house is full of smoke and they don't know where it's coming from, but it's full of smoke, it's abnormal. You call, we get there, we say, okay, it's not a fire, but it's this. We take care of it and we leave, right? But if it's a legitimate fire, I've had 3 back-to-back that were legitimate fires. It was during the summer, and it was probably one of my toughest shifts because each one I was there probably at least an hour and a half on each one. So in the heat, battling fire.
And full uniform.
Yes, yeah. Bunked out. So, but those are, again, there's streaks, and there's hills and there's valleys. There's peaks and valleys, and that's how things run, up and down, up and down. So your frequency level is going to be that. It's going to be, sometimes there's a lot of calls on a certain thing, and then sometimes there's not.
Yeah.
Right. But no matter, we're ready for whatever.
What's the worst fire you've been to? The most devastating.
The worst or the most devastating?
Well, give us both.
So I would say the worst is there was a pretty much just short of a mansion. It was more
Big
than,
house.
Yeah, it was more than 6,000 square feet, right? And it had been burning for a while before we were called out. Structurally wise, the structure was compromised. Even when we got there, it continued to burn, and we fought this thing for 24 hours. I show up after it had been burning for long when we get a shift change happened, and we go out, and I'm at the door, at the back sliding door, and we're still trying to fight fire, but we were instructed, don't go inside. And the reason one of my chiefs said don't go inside is because they had already determined, like, this is not structurally sound. We're going to fight this thing, but we're going to be smart about it. So we're at the back door, one of the people that were with me, it was me and 2 other people, I was on the nozzle, and we stepped just inside the door. Well, good thing, something went off in my head, and I tapped the other guy I was with, and I said, back out. So we took a couple steps back out, and as soon as we did, the floor above us came down. So the structure gave and came down. That was probably the most outside of a house completely burning down. Like, that was probably the most damage I had seen, like on a fire. The whole second level, and it was probably 3 levels. And now that I'm thinking about it, this thing was probably closer to like 10,000 square feet. But the second level collapsed, and the structure gave, and that was a lot of damage. So on the damage portion, I would say that would be that fire. The most devastating, however, on a holiday, several years ago, but on a holiday, it was Thanksgiving, and family lost their home. And it's not the fire that I remember. It was the family, in the front yard watching everything that they own. So that was the most devastating to me, right? So that's why I say those are two different.
Yeah.
they're
Well, I can
two
understand that now.
They're two different types of.
Is there anything that seems to ignite fires more often than other things? Electrical, leaving the stove on.
Human error.
Well,
I mean, like I guess that goes without saying. However,
leaving candles burning. I bought a house in Bedford, 40 years ago now, that it was 4,200 square feet, 2-story. Upstairs was where the nanny slept. And she went off and left some candles burning. And however, whyever happened, it caught the house on fire. And when I saw the house, 6 months after it initially, been on fire, I decided I wanted to buy that house. And we ended up taking everything, roof, everything, second floor up, out, throwing it in the dumpster.
Okay.
And pulling all the carpet out. And the damage was really confined to the second floor, but the whole second level.
Okay.
And then we used 30-yard containers. I think we took 13 or 15 30-yard containers out.
From you filled up 30 containers.
Well, 30-yard containers, the really big ones.
Right.
I think it was 13 or 15 of them. And then we rebuilt the house.
Okay.
Different architectural style. But back in the day, I used to buy and flip houses before it was fashionable. And I've had several I've bought that had burned. One of them was an arson job. And it's a 1-story house over in Euless. And I ended up buying it from the mortgage company. It had been vacant for a year and a half. And the worst part about it, they had a freezer in there full of meat. No power for 18 months.
So it smelled quite nice.
When we opened it up, it was rancid.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I would flip it back on you now. Because you said you bought several homes, right? So what I would do is I would ask you, of those homes that you bought that fire was involved, what were the causes? Was there a main cause in general?
And I did buy several. There was the arson job. That one stands out. There was the nanny and the candles. I remember that one. There were several more that I don't know the cause, but they weren't as extensive a damage. I tell people, you see a house that is burned, it's a nasty, nasty, nasty job to clean it up.
Correct.
But after you clean it up, it's new construction with half of it there already or more. You know, and
So to the question you asked me, is there one cause?
no, just everything, huh?
Nah, there's not. And just like you said, in the handful that you experienced, there were still multiple causes.
Right.
Right. So I would say no. There's not a typical because there's so many variables. If you're in a 1,500 square foot home versus a 4,200 square foot home, in a 4,200 square foot home, if one room decides to something happen, a space heater, a candle, let's say a candle like you gave us the example, and nobody's home or somebody or the living situation is on the first level, but the room upstairs, how long before you realize it's on fire?
Right.
But if I'm in a 1,500 square foot home, it's going to be pretty quick when I realize
yeah.
that, hey, there's something going on in the other room, right? So the variables, there's so many variables that determine like, hey, this is the outcome is the fire, and there's a lot of different variables. So
Now, back in the day of aluminum wiring being in every house, this will be just a guesstimation. I understand that. Do you think the aluminum wiring caused a lot of the fires that were experienced?
I will say this. The reason that things are safer is because industries in general
Have gotten better?
have gotten better and they've learned, right? So whereas, and the same thing in my industry, right? It's, we understand, and the big thing for us is like cancer, right? So the more we understand about the things that cause cancer, the more things we can do to prevent it. So in the same fashion, when we used to wire houses, we would do it a certain way, for different reasons, for available material, the area of the country, access to
New products?
new products. So, I think in that case, it's if you're wiring houses with stuff that's just not good material to wire houses with because they can cause electrical damage,
Fires.
you're going to move away from that, right? Just in general, you're going to move away from that. And I think that's, in that realm, when you talk about how houses have been wired, I think that's what plays into that mostly. But like I said, every industry, you move toward safer, better, more modern. So I think that's just a case of building rules and regulations, building material, building methods, structural, like everything is improved. So
The only thing we can't take out of that mix is poor workmanship.
yes,
If you have an electrician that doesn't tighten the plugs down, or a plumber that sets the gas lines in, doesn't make good connections, then there's a potential there.
yes. However, I will say this. I agree with you. There's one thing you can never take out. But then I'll go back to what I said originally, human error.
Yeah.
There's some things you just can't factor in for human error. When an error is going to be made, if an error is going to be, you can't factor in for it. So that's always going to be the case.
Yeah. All righty. So let's talk about photography.
All right.
How'd you get into it?
So I've been shooting for 13 years and I've been a firefighter for 13 years. So when I first started, my wife was into photography. However, she was into photography in the format that a lot of people get into photography. They get a camera, and back in my experience, and I knew a lot of people, not just what happened in my case, but we get a little kit, a little, and what I mean by kit is the major brands would put in a kit to sell a camera body and 2 lenses, and we call it a kit, right?
Right.
Well, she did that, start taking photos, and then, of course, recruited friends and family to assist, like a lot of us. So, in effort to support her, I tagged along in the weekend seminars that she would do on photographies, or the weekend or like classes or whatever. I would tag along. Come to find out, I loved it. Going through that. So,
And her not so much?
no, she did. It's just we had a different approach, and I think that the one event that happened that kind of signified everything, like this is our differences. For me, no matter what I'm doing, I'm trying to behave in a manner at which is appropriate. So she had a friend that had a baby, and she was like, "Hey, would you guys come over and take pictures of the baby?" Because at this point I had started assisting her, newborn photography, right? So I'm like, okay, we get over there, and my at the time wife picked up the baby and started like we're rolling at 15 minutes. She's just oogling the baby. Of course, I get it, right? I get it. But I had to tap her on the shoulder. Hey, we're here to do a shoot. Like, let's roll. Like, let's go. We're here for this side of it. And I'll admit it. I probably didn't say it in the nicest way. I don't know, like in general, but me reminding her several kind of ruined it for her, ruined the experience. Once she told me that, I said, okay, well, I'll back off. And I don't want to make this thing not fun, because that's what she was doing it for fun. Which, again, a lot of us are like that. Get into it, it's fun, and then you get to a point where you have to decide, this is going to be business or it's just going to remain fun.
Right.
For me, I was in the business
mindset
and mode, and she wanted to keep it fun. So that was fine. That's like, okay, cool. But that got me into it. So oddly enough,
so y'all do separate genres?
No, I just let her have it. It was her thing.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to ruin that. But oddly enough, we as a marriage didn't work out, and at that point, I don't know if she was done with the fun or she was just being a good person, and she was like, "No, you can have that stuff. You're way more into that thing."
Oh, the camera. And stuff,
yeah, the camera and the equipment. So I was like, okay, and that was my start in photography.
So you still shoot newborns?
Yes, I shoot newborns.
Do you cuddle them and play with them? And
I do not. Not now. Going back to the business part of it, one thing I've learned is there's some critical key factors to success when you do certain types of shoots. And a newborn shoot, one of the key factors is not mom, not dad. Now, I want mom and dad there, right? We got baby, mom, and dad. But I need a grandma or an auntie or another female, because for some reason they know how to calm a baby down. So when you do a newborn shoot, you're kind of at the timing of the baby. If the baby's crying, we're not shooting much.
Exactly.
Right? We're just not shooting much. That's up to the baby. So one of the things you do is you say, hey, make sure before we shoot, you feed the baby.
right?
And burping.
And because now the baby's calm. The baby is not in need. The baby is comforted. Baby gets there, it's still up to the baby. If the baby just does not want to cooperate, the baby's not going to cooperate. There's not much you can do. But what I found that I can do, and most of my newborn shoots are like this. Mom in the background, I say mom, grandma in the background for the baby. One or both, or they come in, they do a little oye, and the baby calms down. So that's one of the success factors in my newborn. But that's just me. I do that. I try to do that because, and sometimes they can't make it. Sometimes they can't. So you just kind of go with what you have. But
Well, I don't do newborns.
no, why not?
Well, it's terrible, and I've told it before. You know how women, especially, every newborn is a beautiful baby. To me, every newborn looks like a baby possum. And you just can't tell a client that. And I can't say that, oh, that's so pretty. No, it looks like a baby possum. It'll look better eventually, but it won't be a newborn.
So your problem is you have a tact issue.
Yeah.
You gotta, and I just read some stuff on tact, timing, tact, tone, and timing. You didn't have enough tact just to not say anything.
I had no tact.
Okay, again. All right.
That's why the podcast is from the hip. I'm not.
So the funny thing is, growing up, my dad, he thought all newborns look like gremlins. That was out of verbatim. He said all newborns look like gremlins. So
I don't disagree with him at all. Even my own.
Hey, I don't agree. Now I have some that have look like gremlins, mind you, but babies are beautiful. Babies they cute and cuddly, But now every once in a while, some of them do look
we
like
may have to disagree.
Yeah, they look like you don't want to let the water. What was it? The water and the moonlight hit them?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, some of them should have been thrown out with bathwater.
No baby should be thrown out with bathwater. It's not their fault. Their parents gave them the DNA that they gave them.
Well, that's true.
You know what I mean?
I've seen some of those parents too, though, so I know how the baby's going to look like when it gets older.
No comment.
Like I said, I have no tact. But you don't specifically shoot newborns, do you?
Not only, no. My Instagram page is, and that's mostly what I go off of because I don't do this for a full-time gig, right? Clearly, we spent some time talking about what's my main, source of income in my main career. So I do a little bit of everything, when I shoot.
Yeah. I got to tell a story on you.
Okay.
I've known Paul for a while now, folks.
How long?
6 years, maybe? Maybe longer.
No, it's longer than that, brother.
Well, I'm old. I don't remember well. He's one of the most happy-go-lucky. Do anything type of guy that I know. He's enjoyable to be around. He's got a great personality.
I appreciate that.
And he called several years ago, and he wanted to do a dude war shoot, which is like a boudoir shoot, only for a male. I respectfully declined to shoot Paul, but a good friend of mine, Tom Thompson, did. Mm-hmm. And he said that Paul kept him rolling the whole time.
Yeah. Look, man, let's
So you had no shame either. You've got tact, but you don't have any shame.
Yeah, I don't find shame in a lot. You know what I mean? Like I don't
I am who I am. I say what I say. Now understanding, I do have clarity and understanding too that some being that way can sometimes be offensive to people, and I try to keep that in check. However, it's easy for and if I'm being honest, male photographers to go out there and try to do boudoir shoots, right? Okay, this is the thing. This is the classification of this genre, boudoir, right? Through the history of time, the sexiness, the prettiest, the attractiveness, the softness, the comfort found in a woman's body has been the thing.
Exactly.
So my brain says turn it on its head. Let's do a boudoir shoot. Well, I couldn't find any guys, especially in the fire. I'm look all these big strong guys, and I want to get them like in a field of flowers on their stomach with their hands on their chins, with their feet kicked up behind them, right? And I couldn't find anybody to do it.
Imagine that.
I know. I'm like, what in the world? Like, I want to do. It's like a spoof movie. Like, the Wayans brothers always do these movies that spoof other like real movies. And that's the approach I wanted to take. And I couldn't find a guy. To do it. I tried. And I couldn't find one that was just not so, serious. So I was like, I'll do it. I want to do one. I absolutely want to do one. So I did it. I got Tom to do it for me.
Yeah. And for a guy, and being in the industry myself, I understand. You just about have to get a male photographer if you're a guy. Because if you call a female photographer, they're going to think you're perverted, maybe, or different.
That's an interesting take because I feel the opposite. I feel that's interesting. Like I never thought about it like that, but I feel the opposite. I feel like it's easier for a guy to control the. Well, let me back up. It's easier for a female photographer to have clear boundaries, right? So if I wanted to do a boudoir shoot with a female photographer, most female photographers will be like, okay, well, give me the details. What do you want to do? We're like, because their brain is like, look, dude, I'm not looking at your penis. Like, I don't want to see that. I don't want to see your butt. Like that, they're gonna ask appropriate questions and see what they're getting into.
Right.
Most guy photographers, if a female calls them and they say they want to do a boudoir, I don't know that a lot of male photographers would ask enough questions. They'll be like, okay, what time? What do you? They might say, what are you looking for? But so I think it's funny. I just differ in opinions. I'm not saying I'm right. I just differ in opinion on that. Is I think the females would ask the more pertinent questions, the female photographers, to figure out what they're getting themselves into.
Well, I'm in a lot of groups.
Yeah.
Okay, Facebook groups, and specifically several that are strictly boudoir.
Right.
And I see a lot of female photographers in those groups say, I've just had a guy, send me a message that's interested in a boudoir shoot.
Right.
Do you think that's weird? And so a lot of female photographers are concerned.
Right.
And probably, I'll say 70% of the people that respond to it say, no, that's not unusual. And it happens more and more these days.
Right.
But I guess it's the way the initial contact is.
Right.
First question, who's the shoot for? And, it's just for myself. I just want to see how good I look, nude.
Yeah.
It just sounds different coming from a man. Because, with a woman, it may be that she's been working out a lot and feels really good about herself or had a new makeover or whatever.
Right. And look, like you're saying, you're drawing from actual things you've seen from other people, these groups, right? I'm not. My vantage point here is a little bit more narrow, right? Which is not,
Doesn't
you
make
have
wrong, just
right, but I just want to acknowledge you have a broader experience base to pull from right now. For me, I look, I have always erred on the side of safety and caution, right? I work the models that I've worked with. If I work with a model, there's been two things that I have that I try to do every time I work with someone. Well, even before. One of them is before. One of them is I want you to vet me, but I'm going to vet you as well. And if you're a model that has no direction and you're just out there just floating and you got
may show up, may not.
messy, your life looks messy online and look, and these are people I don't know, so all I have to go on. I really am not going to shoot with you. I don't want to. And that's not I'm too good. It's just I prefer not to put myself in a situation where I'm dealing with somebody who's messy. If I had control of that, then I don't want that.
Yeah.
So if you look like your stuff's together enough, and I mean, you don't have to, everything doesn't have to be perfect. It's not my point. But if you're over the top, out of control, then no, I'm not. But, if I do, okay, we can do this. The other thing is, how you value your time for me. So especially when we're talking about, renting studios, right? So I pay you a certain amount for an hour. For on the photographer side, I have to determine if I don't have my stuff together as a photographer and I don't shoot, and what I mean by that is I'm not efficient when I shoot, an hour can easily turn into 2.
Right.
Right? If I don't have a game plan, if I don't have experience shooting a certain thing, you want to book 2 hours. You don't want to just book an hour, right? So with that in mind, if I book a studio for an hour because I know I can get this done, but you as a model show up 15 minutes late, and then another 20 minutes of
hair, makeup,
wardrobe, I'm never shooting with you again. Yeah. And look, and it's not because I'm better than anybody. It's I value my time. So if a model does that, then I feel like they don't value their time is the same that I value my time. So it's not a good match. Right? And that's highly important to me. I want people in this thing. I like working with people who you don't have to be into it for the same reasons that I am, but you have direction. You're headed a place, right? And if you're not headed a place, then you're a client. And if you're a client, you're paying me.
Right.
That's just squared away. You either had a point to this shoot, headshots for a job, or a birthday shoot. I want to feel good. It's my 40th. Boom, boom, boom. Cool. That's a one and done. It doesn't matter. Look, and if you're a client, if you show up 15 minutes late and do 20 minutes of hair, makeup, wardrobe, that's on you.
Yeah.
I don't pay for it. That's literally on you. But if I have a creative project in mind and I know I can get it done in an hour, or now we're in the holidays, right? Oh, cool. I have this thing. I know I can get it done. All I need is the model to, if I picked a certain one and I reached out to him, I can say, hey, do you have this time, this availability, and we get that worked out. I just need you to show up at that time.
like we agreed.
Yeah.
And then everything else is good. I mean, yeah, I want you to be able to do your modeling good, but you know, even if not, I'm going to ask those questions to see what I'm working with, because if I'm shooting you and you're new, I'm going to tell you right away, show up 30 minutes earlier. I need to talk to you. I need to say, hey, here's some of the things. Here's how I communicate when I shoot. Right? I'll have ideas. We're both in this, and we just create. Right? But in that, we kind of learn a little bit each other and how to operate, and then we shoot. Right? But if you're kind of a little bit more advanced model, then we can show up. I can say very little, and then we can go. Right? So it's that time thing for me.
Time matters.
Time absolutely matters. Right?
Being on time is really critical, folks. Always try to be on time. Or early.
Some people say early is on time.
Well, I agree with those people. But we've had enough people. I very, very seldom ever have a photographer show up late. In thousands of shoots, 20 in 15 years, may have been 10 minutes late. Same shoots, hundreds of models have been 30 minutes or longer late. Now, if nobody's booked behind that photographer for that shoot, then yes, I will sell them another hour. But I feel bad for them because it's not their fault. You know, it's not their fault that the model didn't get there on time.
Sure. Right. But also, like, it's parameters, it's communication. Like, if I book a shoot and it's for a client, like let's say it's a family portrait, right? And they really just want one big portrait to go above their fireplace.
Right.
Right? Okay, cool. That gives me the information I need. I need to know how many people are going to be in the portrait, so I can start to think about posing these
Right.
people together.
Number of people and ages.
Right. Number of people and ages, right? So I can start to think about that, right? If I need one shot and this family shows up 15 minutes late, I still can get one shot. But understand, to corral, let's say it's 5 people. To corral 5 people, get them in here, it's going to take time. Right?
And 3 of them under 10.
Right. So we got it. So these are things that add time. But if it's a client, look, me shooting, your options, instead of having 15 amazing portraits to choose from, you might have 7.
Yeah.
Because everybody showed up late. Right? And but again, that you can passes on to the client. Like if you're doing a creative shoot, and I have, I always say I'm a little off sometimes, because when I see stuff, it'll spark my brain, and then I'll like, oh, it would be cool if you do this and this and this and this, and it would be cool if you had this and this, right? So again, like the doudoir and the boudoir, for me, I thought about it. It's like, man, we got all this T and A just spread out there. Man, where the dudes at? Where the dudes at? Like, I don't need to see anything from the dudes, but I want to mock this thing, and I want to get a guy in a field of fly. Like that's the way my brain thinks. So on the other hand, like I shot a male model once, and we decided we were gonna do a milk bath, right? Because milk baths are typically babies and women,
Right.
right, in the milk. And if it's a baby in the milk, whether the baby is clothed or not, it's more wholesome.
Yeah.
It's more wholesome, right? Because it's a baby, right?
Yeah.
But if it's a woman, a lot of the women are not clothed, right? And we do some artistic covering up, whatever. So my thought was,
like, hey, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get a guy, but instead of like milk with a bunch of flowers, because that's one of the things we do, flowers. I said, I'm gonna have him wear a floral tie, right? So my brain, I think a little different on this stuff.
That's true. Paul does.
I
Think a
do
little
like,
different.
and when I think that, I'm like, yeah, that's what I'll do. Milk bath. I have real good looking guy, floral tie, and he'll have like this awesome suit, white shirt, button up, and that's what I did, and it came out great, right? But it's
Was that Glenn, the model?
no,
Not as old as me, but
no. It was a younger man. He was new. It's been a while. It's been a few years, and it was the only time I worked with him at that point. Like I'm sure if he's still doing it, I could call him up because we had a great experience. That was a good. We created some good images. I mean, of course, I'm gonna say great images, but we created some good stuff. So I mean, I could call him up and But my point in telling that story is like I think kind of differently. Right. So when I have ideas, sometimes they're my brain will go and I don't want to say tailspin because they're organized thoughts. And then I'll take a thought and I'll say, that won't work. This won't work. This will work. Oh, this is work. Oh, this is how I can do a new spin on this, and this. And I put it together. Right. And to me, that's part of the
Process.
the process I take. Right. And then as I get it together, right. That's part of the process I take. So, again, just me in this, but I know I'm aware of sometimes I think a little off. I'm aware of that.
well, if somebody wants to hire you as a photographer, how do they get hold of you?
So typically, I don't mind. I get text messages sometimes, but that's probably the least frequent. Most people will hit me up on Instagram Messenger or Facebook Messenger, right?
And what is your Instagram?
My Instagram is Paul Alfred Photography. Actually, hold on. Did I say that right? No, I didn't. Paul Alfred Photo, right? And there's I have on my what is the image?
Right, profile picture.
My profile pic. Thank you. There is a very, very amazing rendition of me in the cartoon character on there. So it's my business one, and that's how you get a hold of me. And from the process that I take, it's if you're going to client, you say, hey, I want this, I tell you straight away, I can do that or I can't, or it's a collaboration. And typically most things are client says, hey, I want this. And I say, okay, here are the variables that I need. Are you able to provide? Yes. Okay. This time of day, this, it. And then we make a match and then we go from there. So that's typically how it works when contacting me and getting and us working together.
Well, that's cool. Folks, I just wanted to introduce Paul to y'all. As you can tell, he's a hoot. He's a lot of fun. He's got a great personality.
Hey, I appreciate you.
And
Dave.
he's a good photographer. So I guess, Paul, until next time.
Anytime, brother. Anytime.
Okay, we'll do it again.
All right.
We'll see y'all next time, folks.